Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another video here with Attorney Matthew Lang, a VA accredited attorney. Today's topic I want to go through is just a generality of evidence that can be submitted to a VA disability claim. I see when I browse the internet some questions that pop up, especially from veterans who always ask the question of, if I didn't get documented in my service treatment records, or I didn't go to sick call, I didn't go seek out medical, can I still get a grant in my benefits? Ultimately, yes, it's possible, because in the law we don't focus on just one piece of evidence. We do allow other pieces of evidence to fill in for, say, for example, that missing medical evidence. So let me give you kind of a rundown of what that evidence is that we typically use here, or at least I use when working with the VA disability claim. And these are things that you can work on yourself, or again, highly recommend that you get a representative who can argue out the finer points of the law with those pieces of evidence, and make sure everything goes a little bit smoother for you. And if you'd like, again, I'm not against the idea of reviewing any documentation for you or representing for you. Please feel free to go to my website, veteranlang.com. Again, veteranlang.com, to schedule a case evaluation through my calendar with a link that's provided on the website. So we already briefly touched on the medical evidence a little bit there. We know that there are times as service members, as veterans, that when we go into the military, there's going to be some sort of medical documentation provided. Now, is it always provided? No. We definitely run into situations where it's not. Maybe you're in a combat zone. You're just in an area that doesn't have medical personnel, and so it's just not going to get documented. That is fairly common, especially with the Iraq, Afghanistan locations, maybe even Vietnam locations, and so many others. So we get that evidence. Now, we also have evidence that could come from your military personnel file or your military personnel jacket. Sometimes there's just things that are filed in there that should be filed in your medical records. I've seen things like entrance exams into service or exit exams, medical exams. Sometimes those get filed there when they're not supposed to be. So we can still pull those out of there. There's still medical evidence. But we also find things like your DD-214, any other discharge document, orders we might seek, depending on what you're claiming. Depends on if you need any of this stuff. So we also can go through the idea of your own personal lay statement, what we call lay evidence. So it can be your own personal statement of the facts of what occurred. It can include what you witnessed, stressors for mental health, the events that occurred that weren't documented, why they weren't documented. Maybe you self-treated yourself. I know I do even today in the civilian capacity. I get a headache. I don't usually pick up the phone and go, "Hey, doc." I just bear through it and grab some Tylenol, ibuprofen, Excedrin, aspirin, whatever's next to me, and just hope that it does the trick, right? And I think we can say that's true for just any reasonable person in general. So your own statement, not only your own statement, but your buddy statements, which is still a version of lay evidence. The buddy statement is essentially people that you served with, that observed the events that may have created the injury in itself, and those symptoms that they could easily observe. Like maybe they seen you limping around after an injury. Maybe they seen you holding your back. Maybe you even complained to them, and they can document that complaint as well. Buddy statements could also be from family members, spouses, children, other close relatives, brothers, sisters, whatnot, that observed, again, the symptoms of your condition. Maybe your condition wasn't in service, and maybe it was a secondary issue, for example. They can even speak to the symptoms that they saw when you had anxiety, and how it affected maybe sleep apnea, for example. So it could be a multitude of things in those statements, anywhere from the secondary issues, the direct issues. Maybe your family members were there. Children seen you come home every day in pain from working in the field or heavy labor activities. Maybe you're a mechanic. Maybe you worked in supply. You were lifting a lot of heavy equipment. Whatever it may be. You went overseas, looking fairly healthy. Came back just all beat up, and they can observe that. So we got that there. We also have medical evidence post service, right? So when you do see a doctor, a physician, a nurse, anybody able to practice medicine, they make a documentation of that condition, and we can utilize that information in different ways in your claim as well. Whether that be to show a current diagnosis or to show continuation of your condition since service. So we do have a multitude of things. We've also talked about that DBQ in previous video. That's again a medical evidence as well. So we do have, again, for example, service treatment records, as we call them. We have service personnel records that may contain something depending on what you claim, and lay evidence, which can be statements from yourself, from your friends, your family, your fellow military members, other buddies, and then additional medical evidence post-service as well that could show different elements of your claim. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to go back to lay evidence for a second, but keep in mind, lay evidence isn't just written down on a sworn statement or a piece of notebook paper or typed up on the computer here. Understand that your lay evidence could be what is provided to the doctors post-service as well. Maybe you go to a VA examination. The statements you make during that is lay evidence. So we can utilize that potentially as well in order to benefit your claim. Now, so law allows us all these other options. The law says that the VA must review all this and weigh all this information and actually consider it and analyze it in order to make a proper decision. It is with great misfortune that we don't always see that being properly done underneath the law, and then that you may have to appeal your claim more than once in order to get there. But understand that these are forms of evidence. So if you are missing evidence, say again you're in a situation where you didn't have a medical facility to attend to, or you didn't have the specialized care that was needed, so nothing was documented in your military records, then we can prove those elements other ways. So definitely don't get discouraged, veterans, if you didn't go to sick call, medical, or you weren't able to. Again, get a representative if need be. Let us help you out with that and filling in those blanks and arguing that evidence off. And then I always like to shift on two sides, because I want to be able to work together with just not only veterans, but with the VA and serving their mission to all the veterans out there. And VA, please, please, please remember, you have a federal obligation underneath the law to actually properly review all this evidence. I understand that you're underneath a production standard, which you feel you can't meet. May not. Let me back up. I feel you can't meet, but you may also feel that you can't meet, and I can't put those words in your mouth, but that by exploring all the evidence and talking about all the evidence as the law requires. But do remember, the production standard is not what's at risk here, it's the veteran's livelihood. So do remember that evidence could be anywhere in there. So even if it's not documented in an STR service treatment record, that you may have it documented someplace else, and we're only required to meet elements based upon a series of evidence. So please remember to do that and speak about that evidence clearly in your decision as prescribed by the federal law. Now, take it as you will. I'm not going to give you in this short video in the summary every piece of evidence out there and exactly how we're going to look at it. These are things that can be discussed over time, but for the two sides, for veterans and for the VA, just understand these are some very common pieces of evidence and where we find them. Again, service medical records, personnel records, personal statements, sworn statements, other lay evidence found in medical records, buddy statements from family, friends, colleagues, military person, other military personnel, and then medical records post service. But with that, I thank you for attending my short little film here to explain the generalities of the additional evidence that is available out there to utilize to prove different elements. Remember, law is not tied down to just one piece of evidence. For if it was, we would probably see a lot of hearings and trials not go nearly as long as they do in even criminal cases or other civil cases. So again, I thank you for watching today's video. I look forward to our next video together and sharing more information. Thank you again.